right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. This is episode number 99, and I have a very special guest, perhaps the most special guest I could ever have, which is my own granddad. I'll tell you a little bit about my granddad before we get into the actual recording. He is one of the most important people in my life in terms of business and just personal as well. When I was younger, very young, he was one of the biggest supports and people who are available to me. And as someone who is an accountant, that was his profession for many years, having someone like that to go and talk to was so valuable for me. A little bit of background that maybe you guys don't know. When I was younger, my parents, they got divorced. It's not uncommon these days, but my dad moved to the other side of the country. And from 15, 16, I didn't really have a father figure in my life. And my mum very wisely moved 200 meters away from my grandparents, who I had and have a great relationship with. And growing up, my dad wasn't there, but my granddad sort of filled that role for me. When I started my business at 19, I went to his house all the time. As someone who has helped small businesses, he'd worked with my mum, who had a small business and was obviously an accountant. I could get a lot of really good advice. And the older I get, the more important I realized that was, because even though the advice wasn't, it wasn't like these were life-changing moments of advice that were just the elixir of wisdom themselves. Sometimes they were. It was just having a voice to talk to and somebody who knew more than I did, which wasn't hard when you're 19. But, when you're 19, who do you know? Who can you talk to? And these sorts of little things were really, really valuable. So I wanted to actually honor my granddad in my 99th episode, have him as the guest. He is a garden enthusiast as well. If you've ever seen any of our beautiful marketing photos from Silverstone Gardening, about a third of them are taken at his property, which we have maintained from time to time, but he actually does a lot of the work. We help him out with the bigger stuff. He's in his 80s now. But anyways, I just wanted to have this as an honoring podcast for my granddad. Episode 99. If you like the content, it is actually interesting. It's not just me and my granddad having a chat down memory lane. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into the podcast. All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast, episode 99. And I have the most followed person on the internet, I think.
Yeah.
No, I've got my granddad. How are you, Grandad?
Good, thank you, Luke. How are you?
Terry, for people who aren't your actual grandchildren.
Yeah.
So the reason why I wanted to get you on is not just how I'm getting my granddad on, but you've been a business counsel because you were an accountant.
I was.
That was your profession. And when I first started the business, I was 19. I was still living at Mum's. Mum's house is 200 meters down the road. And all the time, when I first started, I'd walk over here and I'd tell you excitedly the update of getting a new client, or how do I do my BAS, or I've got this problem with my invoice.
Yeah, how do I do invoices?
I actually remember Ray White down the road. Do you remember I did a job for them, and I sent an invoice off and I'd done everything wrong because it wasn't an official invoice in any way, shape or form. I had to bring it back to you. I mean, like the fourth job I ever did. Yeah. I had to bring it back to you and actually show me how to even make an invoice.
Did you have an ABN number at that stage?
I had an ABN.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we started off with just a little invoice book from the newsagent with carbon paper or something, or carbon pages, so you can keep a copy of what was going on. I think you might have moved to Excel at some point after that to do invoices.
Yep.
It was some time before you actually got onto QuickBooks. And I think the only reason, because I was actually involved with your mum's business as well, and she had to go into QuickBooks because of the single touch payroll system, which was an absolute pain. And then of course you by now would have been employing people that had to do the same thing, so you went on to single touch payroll.
Well, we had an American, we got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still have now. We got Service Autopilot, which we still but Service Auto Parts invoicing system doesn't have all the features that you need, so we needed another invoicing system. People always ask, side note, but people always ask me, like, what software system do you use? We use Service Auto Part, but I wouldn't recommend it.
No, I think from what Darren was saying, Darren, you've all probably heard of Darren.
Yep.
Darren recommends Service Mate or something like that.
There's a few more. But we've gone so far down that path, and there's 2 or 3 small things that it does really well that we need that others don't do as well. But starting from scratch, you know, like it comes out in the wash with everyone's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like back in the day, believe it or not, when I started the business, they were the first and only that did automated route efficiency stuff.
Yeah.
So you could put in, here's my 10 jobs, and it would automate the efficient, and you usually get 1 out of every 30 jobs wrong.
I must say I was impressed with that system that you developed, where you controlled everything from the mobile phone, and your staff had mobile phones, and that was they logged jobs and they logged the hours and stuff like that, which I thought was brilliant. It was a while before you got there, and
but then now they all do it.
Now they all
Back
do
in the day, so we suffered through all the pain because of that, and we bought all these systems around that, and then, but
now it's common practice.
everyone does it.
I remember when you first started out, I think you were working for the education department as a gardener.
Yep.
And that was good grounding because they did some training courses on using sprays and all that kind of stuff. I remember you talking about that, and then of course after you'd started work at the education department, you were also beginning to do gardening work after hours or on weekends and stuff like that. Just starting, I don't know why you started that, probably because you were basically an entrepreneur at the end of the day and didn't want to be working for a boss. Would that be right?
There was a bit of that, and there was a bit of $23 an hour. Didn't sound as this. When I was 18, $23 an hour sounded great.
Yeah.
And then by the time I was like late 19s, I was like, hold on a second. You can't really live off this.
No.
But when you're living with your mum, full-time work, $23 an hour is 860 something bucks a week.
Yes, so a lot of the bills that you would normally pay just they just disappeared. Mum taking care of them.
Exactly. Good on you. You don't at 18 you don't realise how you think that's so much money.
Yeah.
But to be honest, if today someone had $800 a week of expendable income with a family and kids, they're doing great too. You know,
Yeah,
they'd be real
that's
happy.
right.
But yeah, I mean, that was before tax. But actually, do you know what helped start the business was talking about counting? Do you remember that I ticked the wrong box at that school for my tax?
Yes.
And you remember this? I ticked that I didn't want to take advantage of the tax 3 threshold.
Yeah, that's right. Tax
for the $18,000. So I got taxed 30%. Or no, it was
probably beneficial. You would have got it back at the end of the day.
Because I was so bad at saving money. That first year I had no savings.
Yeah.
And then I got a $6,000 tax return. And I was like, sick.
How come?
I didn't even know I was getting it. I knew nothing about money.
Yeah.
And that's when I came back from that trip around Australia to a $6,000 tax return. And I was like, going to start my business with that.
Absolutely.
And
Well, your mum bought a business, didn't you? She bought a business for you.
She bought the round.
Bought a cheap round. One was really cheap round.
Yeah.
And in that round, in that gear, I think he just threw in a Scott Bonner mower, didn't he?
He did. So about 6 months in, so for people who don't know, I was doing those real early days, stuffing up the invoice at the, local real estate agent and all that sort of stuff. I was working from 6 till 2:30 at the school.
Yeah.
So I was fitting in jobs, from 3 till 5 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I was only doing 5 or 6 jobs a week. And a friend of mine saw an opportunity for a business that was for sale that apparently had 34 clients and it was $2,000. And I met with this guy, and because I was fantastic with money, I didn't really have $2,000. But my paycheck was coming, and I was kind of umming and ahhing about it, and I thought I was going to lose it because I had to wait to, get payments through from other jobs and cash flow. Yeah, it was a nightmare because I would do jobs and not send out an invoice for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then they'd give me another 2 weeks to pay it. So then Mum helped me out, and she gave me the $2,000. This guy had been a little bit optimistic, to say the least, about the number of clients. So I ended up, after about a month, I ended up with about 18 clients.
Okay.
But even then, it was still a good deal. And
we had to add the mower.
so Scott Bonner, he gave me the Scott Bonner for free.
Yeah.
He was moving interstate and it had a seized engine, and I knew nothing about it. And then you went on YouTube.
Yeah, well, I knew that you could get replacement engines pretty readily, so we went and bought another Briggs & Stratton motor from your local supplier
Craig
who you
at
deal
Marlwell.
with now. Yeah. Fitted it, found in the process that the clutch cork needed replacing, and we glued that on. I remember we got it crooked, but we went with it anyway.
The clutch has not failed in...
You still got it, haven't you?
I still got it. The chain broke.
That's right. I remember your daughter crying because
Emmy,
the chain broke.
Yeah. Because what happened was the screws on the chain protector rattled out.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember you told me about that.
I just lost them, and then they're a weird shaped screws, so you can't get them at Bunnings.
Yeah.
And I was in the back of my head, I was like, oh look, I'll just mow without the chain guard. And then of course the chain guard protects the chain, and one day I knocked the wall with the chain, and then it snapped. But it was a big bang because the chain came around and whacked something, stopped the mower, and Emmy was really frightened by it. And then I told her the lawnmower broke, and she was devastated. It's probably 2 years old or something. Because anyways.
But other than that, did you fix it up?
No, it's still in pieces.
Still in pieces.
Well, I mean, I had a spare Mowmaster.
Yeah.
So, but it's in the warehouse.
It's probably worth $500.
It is, but I could never sell it because we changed that engine. I'm very sentimental about the mower.
Okay.
And I've told about it on the podcast before, where it's like, this is like formative years, 6 months into the business. It was probably 6 months where I was just doing the jobs after work. Then I bought the round, and I actually had 2 school jobs. One was 3 days a week, one was 2 days a week. And when I bought the round, I said goodbye to the 2 day a week job.
Yeah.
Or the other way around, which one? No, it was the 2 day a week job I said goodbye to. And I did those jobs in my 2 days a week. And I had a cylinder mower.
Yeah.
And I was doing...
That's classy mowing.
It was. I was doing commercial work with the cylinder mower, and I did not know what I was doing. I didn't know how to adjust the blade. I remember
this maintenance thing, because that's one of the questions I had in the back of my mind, apart from your eager cup half full entrepreneurship attitude towards everything. Yeah. I thought to myself, do you know any mechanical stuff?
No.
You know how to actually service these things? Because that's going to cost you an arm and a leg if you don't do that.
Yeah. No, we're just optimistic.
Optimistic
and get.
I'll say this about entrepreneurs: they have to be optimistic, otherwise they wouldn't be in business.
No, but that's also like you. We said this before the podcast: is that you're not a outright pessimistic person. But I would always come here and be like, I've got this great idea, and you would consider it your job to challenge which I needed. Because when you're in business, it's a very lonely place. Yeah. Not many people know small business. I'm lucky that Mum ran a hair salon, and there she is now. Yeah, just trying to come outside and say hello. So my mum ran a small business with a hair salon, so there was somebody who understood, which is probably why she was keen to help out with buying that round. Mm. But it was very good to come to you. And because if you went to a real accountant, well, you would have to pay them to start with, but you would almost be too embarrassed to ask some of the questions that you need to ask early days. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm sure most accountants are confronted with this sort of thing all the time. Now, usually it's too late. I mean, not too late, but when their tax return is due and they don't have any paperwork, and they haven't made adequate records and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
But your keenness and your cup half full attitude has driven you for the past 10 years. And in the mix of that, of course, is your arthritis issues and your bone erosion, which has been a real, amazingly, that you've been able to carry on.
Just. It's like a plane. It was like, you know, we're going lower and we clipped the top of some trees there. The landing gears.
I think ultimately you're going to have to land and do something else, but I think you're heading that direction now.
Well, this was something else.
Yeah.
I don't think I could ever leave the industry. Like, I had an offer to do that, but I think in this industry, and it was a temptation in those seasons to be like, you know, I can't work physically. It was 2.5 years of real bad health.
Yeah.
I can't work physically. I want to make this business work. That was a very challenging season, and then the workers' compensation and
I know.
Hardest market in 40 years to find employees, and we needed a certain number to hit targets. And
yeah.
Do you know, there's something I've never talked about on the podcast, but I can talk about it now. But do you remember the guy who tried to take us to court for an unfair dismissal?
Yes, I do. I remember you talking about it.
So we had a guy. So people, I can talk about this now because long enough has elapsed, about a week ago, that he can't pursue this anymore. We got an email about it. But we had a guy who we hired as a casual, and 3 days in, he lost his temper. Not in an aggressive, abusive way, but in a really awkward, uncomfortable way, on a retirement village site.
That didn't do well.
It doesn't do well, and it wasn't like anyone was going to get punched in the face or anything, but it was unprofessional, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I could have just fired him. I should have just fired him. What I did is I said, mate, that's totally inappropriate, and I basically gave him a warning, and I said, if this happens again, you're going to lose your job. And he was very apologetic, and he said, it's never going to happen again. And he was working 1 or 2 days a week. 3 working days later, so was that 3 weeks, 2 weeks later, something similar happened, and we fired him. We had everything in writing and everything. Now, he was a casual, and within probation. He complained to Fair Work about unfair dismissal, which just isn't a thing in that scenario, and unpaid overtime, because he had he was in a crew with somebody, and they had said to him, how long do you want to have for lunch, or what do you want to do for lunch? And he said he was happy to work through lunch. So he had mentioned, well, this is what the crew leader, who I had no reason to doubt, was telling me. He took us to Fair Work. We had to go to basically a pre-court meeting with a judge, and very nervous. It was very, I knew we were in the right, but
it is confronting, yeah.
Yeah, and very stressful. And we had, at the time, a lot of other challenges going on as well. So it was an extra weight that I didn't want to bear. But I wanted to be as professional as possible. So we went there, I shook his hand, and, it was respectful and everything. But Fair Work, believe it or not, before the court hearing, well, it wasn't a court hearing, but the pre-court hearing, what did they call it? Arbitration or?
Conciliation.
The conciliation thing. Anyway, the Fair Work had looked into his claim, because they have to, and they said that, so funnily enough, what he was done was completely manipulative. He had taken the National Awards hourly rate, I believe, and the State Awards standard of overtime, so I think the National Award had 10 hours or beyond was overtime, but at a lower hourly rate, and the State Award, it was the other way around. Overtime was after 7 hours and 40 minutes, but the hourly rate was lower. Yeah. So anyway, they equaled each other out. I've explained that a bit confusingly, but one had a high hourly rate.
You were paying him on the National Award.
I should have been paying him on the State Award.
Should have been paying him on the State Award. The National Award was higher.
But it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
And so they came back to me and said, you're actually paying him on the wrong award. What that means is you've overpaid him $6. And so he was claiming we'd underpaid him $300, right? And we'd overpaid him $6. And so obviously we were vindicated. And then we went to the meeting, and he wanted, I think his first offer was he wanted a $10,000 payment. because of all this sort of stuff. And anyway, we
nice round figure.
Never had to pay anything.
Well, this is similar. This is something that every entrepreneur, every person in business, if they're employing staff, will have to face sooner or later, because people are people. And you unfortunately finish up with all these problems. And while you were talking now, I was thinking, okay, knowing what award you should be on, and knowing what the rates are, and knowing what you can and can't do is very important for someone in business. And so there are a lot of helps out there now online to help you with that.
Well, Fair Work said that even if, and I'm not giving any advice here because it's legal stuff, but my recollection is that basically a lot of people make that mistake. That if there's a certain way that your business is registered, at the time we were sole trader, and basically that means for WA that we should have been under the...
Exactly. And your mother's business was operated the same way, so she was a sole trader, sole owner of the business, and so all her staff were paid on the state board. And if you're a company, then you have to be paid under the national award. Some weird rule, but it's helpful to people in WA because it's beneficial.
But if you look up if you just Google Australian Gardening Award, the national one's surely going to come up. But at the end of the day, they do come out in the wash.
Yeah.
They're incredibly similar, and Fair Work doesn't judge harshly someone who's made that mistake.
No, they won't.
But you would, if you were underpaying someone, you would have to pay them back.
Definitely.
But it wouldn't be classified the same as someone who knew they were blatantly breaking the rules. But all that stuff, and that's stressful. Fair Work giving you a call and being like, just I remember that phone call. I was actually outside Mum's house, must have been there for something, but I got a phone call from Fair Work, just to let you know that someone's lodged a complaint against unfair dismissal and unpaid overtime. And I was like, what? Like, I can remember just being like this is the... Anyways. I mean, so I guess getting back to what, the service that it's been, to have somebody, Darren was definitely one of these people as well in that season, but to go to somebody who you can just talk to, who understands business, isn't on a clock, and can get through a season. It's we talk about spreadsheets and maths and what's the best piece of equipment and how do you market your business and how do you work efficiently. But when problems really happen, you need people to talk to who have a different eye and you trust them, and that's something that I've been really blessed by having you and Grandma. Grandma often sits in and,
She has some wisdom, She's gained over the years.
She does. The way you said that sounded like there's only some there. No, she's good. But having people to come and talk to.
Yeah, I think one of the other things too is that I'm 83. I've gained a little bit of understanding of how to deal with people over the years since I was in business. And you need some people skills, and if you're going to be an employer, how to deal with people, how to, and I think you've got them, and I'm pleased to see that how you can negotiate with people, and where you're not sort of overbearing or threatening or whatever, but you look, mate, you're doing a great job in this area, but I'd like you to pick up in some of these other areas,
Yeah.
We're operating as a team and we need your support and all this kind of stuff. So there are all those kind of things that I think are important for someone in business, and maybe I was somewhat helpful. Now, I don't know a great deal of help in the accounting side.
Well, you had retired by the time I'd started.
Yeah.
So you would have been 72 roughly when we started, 73, because almost 11 years ago. And when did you retire? Late 60s, right?
66 or 7 or something, I remember, something like that.
But so when we first started, you were only 4 or 5 years out of the game.
Yeah.
So you didn't feel like you were completely kind of, what's the word,
lost track of what was happening.
Yeah, out of date. But you would, so it was at then, especially at pivotal time. 'Cause obviously, I got a natural accountant, and they did that sort of stuff too. But helping understand numbers and the formational years, that was really good. But then later on, I
probably would have got more involved with your business had I not had your mum's business.
Yeah,
which I was doing the bookwork for, and I didn't really want to take on any more at that stage.
That's why you retired.
That's it.
No, but the other thing is about you is you're actually a king gardener too.
I am.
And what people don't know, here's the big secret. 1/3 of all of our marketing shots on the Silverstone Gardening website
Taken here.
are taken here. Hedging shots, cylinder mowing shots.
This lawn is still going okay, but I thank Luke for using some of this magic chemicals they get these days, which keep it green. And
yeah. Well, it was easier when they allowed you to have 3 days a week of bore, and then they dropped it down to 2 days a week.
Fortunately, in WA we started to have some rain, which we haven't seen for a long time.
No, last summer though was tough. But that's also part of it as well, because I think the gardening, you've always been into it. I remember back at your previous house 20 years ago when I was, 25 years ago when I was real young. You always had a nice lawn and the garden was neat and tidy, and anyways, but this place is very, I'll put some photos up as we're doing this. I'll put some photos of like the Scott Bonner and stuff that we're talking about. And,
okay.
But you've always liked it, and I guess there's a part of that which is brushed off at some point,
Well, I was thinking about that earlier on. I know that when you had the property in Martin, when your parents had the property in Martin, and what's the 2 acres, 2.5 acres or something?
It's 2 hectares.
2 hectares, 5 acres.
Yeah.
So you were still going to school, and you were mowing on the ride-on mower. And loving it.
And working for my neighbours.
Yes.
I've told that too, because my neighbour was a wealthy businessman, and he saw me doing the gardening at my parents' house, and then he was like, "Do you want to do the gardening at our house?"
Yes.
So at 15, I was a paid gardener.
Yeah.
And that's why I went.
So that started you on the journey, really.
But I think there was an interest in it because, if I'd never seen a nice property or, the gardening side and the enthusiasm that people have, you don't realise that it's a fun career to have.
Oh, it's a great outdoor career, and I think all young blokes would like to be out in the sun and doing something practical. It was a great start.
How's your avocado going?
It suffered a bit from the wind, and it blows most of the flowers off, but we still get some avocados on there.
I have to say, when you planted that, was it 4 years ago?
Yeah.
I was thinking, Grandad's optimistic here. He's in his late 70s and he's putting in a very young avocado.
Hey, you can blame Grandma for that, because she was right into avocados, and she's gone off them a bit now because of health issues. But
I was thinking, I was like, you saved yourself a bit of money, but Grandad, nothing's guaranteed at this age. Are you actually going to be able to get any of the fruit?
I'm getting some mandarins off my imperial mandarin tree.
Yeah.
And some very sick-looking lemons off my lemon tree.
Oh,
dwarf lemon tree, which the grasshoppers love.
They do. But yeah, I think there's because you're always out here mowing. So here's the other thing about you is when we were first trialing the packages, we gave you 3 months.
Yeah.
Where we were like, we're going to do all the lawn care for you because I want to make sure these packages are good before we go out. Then we finished it and I said, we can keep doing it for if you want. And you rejected us.
I did reject.
And you said, no.
Look, I need something to do. I can't just... I need some physical exercise, so...
You wanted to keep mowing your lawn.
Yep.
And you keep buying, even back then, you keep buying old mowers.
If I see a bargain, I've been buying old mowers and pottering around doing them up. But, I basically give them away. In fact, I gave one away. I bought it for $40. It was, a guy said it doesn't have any compression or something. Anyway, I got it home here. Oh, it's okay. Put a new spark plug in it. Boom. away it went. Had us a good little mower, and
That wasn't a Scott Bonner, though.
one of my relatives around here, and he was saying his daughter's got this property and she needs to buy a mower. I said, I've got one. Here.
There you go.
And then we picked up another one very cheaply as well, which someone was advertising for $20. Same thing. Got it home here, put a spark plug in it, away it went.
Well, the mower at Mum's house.
I made $25 on that. I sold it for $45.
What a profitable side hustle you've got.
I know. I'm not going to get any money doing that, but I enjoy doing it. I'm getting a bit weary of it now, but yeah.
Yeah, something to do.
Something to do.
But you needed, and you're right in that when people are older, if they don't have something to do, they age quickly. Because Grandma's turning 80 in February, and she still is ballroom dancing.
She's a great ballroom dancer.
Yeah.
And well, the story with that is that when I retired, I knew she wanted to dance, so I said, let's go and get some lessons, thinking that we'll learn a few dances. I think we learned about 5 dances. And I thought, oh, there you go. I know 5 dances. That's it. She said, I want to keep going. I said, see you later. So,
Yeah.
and she's now, I don't know how many medals she's won, but, you know, think about my wife. Cupboard full of trophies. She's got trophies from netball, trophies from the years that she was a real estate rep, trophies from dancing. And I've got nothing.
Oh dear.
There you go.
I think it's funny that she will go to these. Now, like the last couple of years, she's had it more difficult with her knee.
Yeah.
But even into her mid-70s, she was going to these, because they class them, it's like 60 and above or something like that. Or it was 55 and above or something. I can't remember the category.
They have different categories. They have seniors and I can't remember what they are. But she was doing well. She actually got sick with COVID recently on the very day. She was feeling off beforehand, but on the very day that she was supposed to go into a dance competition, just like a week ago, she got COVID, and I tell you what, she was not fun to be around. Dancing, she couldn't go dancing, so wow, that's the end of the
COVID
world.
wasn't the problem, it was the emotional heartbreak of missing dancing of the COVID.
She just loves the challenge.
I remember she won, if I remember correctly, she won something.
Oh, she's always.
But she was like a decade older than the next closest person, because the category of senior was so broad, and I don't think anyone was expecting someone in their 70s.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, you could be a senior, I think, in your 50s or whatever. I can't remember now what the limit is.
Don't tell Mum.
She's actually dancing with people, like you say, who are 20 years younger than her.
Yeah.
And she's still doing well.
No, so very active. Well, next week is the 100th episode. Well, less than a week. This is going to come out either the day before or the morning of, because the 100th episode's not going to be live. But I know because you comment on my YouTube videos, Terence Hulse, if anybody wants to go back and have a look.
Terence, did I put that?
It might be Terry.
Terry.
But, you know, I don't usually reply, thanks Grandad, or something like that, you know. But you can go back on the YouTube videos and just have a look at the comments. But out of all the 100 episodes, and you've watched not every single one of them, but a lot, what are the ones that you remember that you actually found helpful or interesting or just unique?
Well, a couple spring to mind. The one that you did with Darren about charging, how much you can charge. You should be charging if you want to stay in business. And the one recently I liked about the various equipment you need to have if you're going to start business. $2,000 worth, $10,000, $100,000, whatever you were doing just recently. And I think there was another one there, similar sort of thing about what you can charge in business, that sort of thing. So
The
I'm looking at it
accounting
from the
ones.
accounting business side.
all
of it.
the
I lean towards that, unfortunately. It's a boring, accounting's a boring job. I don't know why I got involved in it. but
The regrets of an 83-year-old.
Yeah, that's right. Things I could have been there. I could have been a lawnmower guy.
Probably till you about 60, though.
Yeah. Those kind of things get me interested because it's important that people know these things if they're going to go into business.
Yep.
I'm glad you did a training program. I haven't been through them, but I'm sure they're good.
Well, I mean, you got to say that because I'm here.
I have.
But do you know?
I guess you'll get feedback saying this is rubbish, or this is good, or this is helpful.
Well, we've advertised through the podcast, but I do try and get as much feedback. One day I'll do paid ads and really promote it to people because it's really for people starting out, and those people might not have found the podcast yet.
Yeah.
And it would be a real help, in my opinion, to people who are just starting out, or people who've been in a year or two and they're struggling in their number side and getting work. But I want to get that feedback first because it's kind of expensive and kind of super cheap at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's $800, $799. But if you go franchise, it'd be tens of thousands of dollars in fees, over years or more, And if you go on your own and you make some mistakes, $800 worth of mistakes doesn't take you very long.
I think if someone's already at a job or earning something and they decide they want to get out in the sun a bit, for them, people who are earning money, to put that kind of investment into some idea of just what's involved and what's it going to cost me, that podcast about the equipment you need and so on, and what I have to watch out for, Some of the things that I don't know whether you're covered or not, but things like insurance, about finding out about, wages and that sort of thing. The various award rates and all that kind of stuff is important for people who are going into business to have an idea about before they actually get in there, what they can and can't do. Or what they should and shouldn't do, shall I say. Well,
are you going to look forward to seeing Tim the Lawnmower Man? Because you watched some of his videos.
Yeah, I watched a lot of Tim's stuff earlier on, and also Blade Man. I watched a lot of his stuff.
Blade Mate, yep.
Blade Mate. I watched a lot of his stuff earlier on. And I'll be interested to I'll ring up Darren and see if he's give you a lift.
Give you a lift over. Although, finishing 8 p.m. till 9 p.m. Live podcast time, that's around your bedtime, right?
It is, yeah, unfortunately.
All right.
So if I'm not off,
I'll be understanding, but somebody else is going to be looking at you going, look at this old geezer, what's he doing here?
Yeah, what is he doing here?
It'd be judgmental.
What does he know about lawn mowing?
Yeah, exactly. All right, anyways, people, this has been episode 99. Thanks for all your help, Grandad.
My pleasure.
And everybody else, I'll see you in the 100th episode.